Hi, and welcome to Strategic Management. This is Chapter 1. I am Professor Mike Nugent, and I'm going to walk you through the highlights and main concepts of Chapter 1, which is an overview of the textbook and the understanding of basically what is strategic management. So I'm going to describe the strategic management process, the 3 stages of formulation, implementation, and evaluation, explain the need for integrating analysis, intuition in conducting strategic management, define and give examples of key terms within strategic management. I'm going to talk about the benefits of strategic management, talk about why some firms do not properly engage in strategic management. I'm going to talk about the pitfalls of not doing strategic planning correctly. I'm going to discuss the connection between business and military strategy and explain how the course can enhance the students' employability. So understanding the strategic objectives of companies is a good way of understanding what you as an employee can do to help the company become more profitable. Okay, so let's define strategic management. So the art and science of formulating. So that one part is important when it says art and science. So it's not all mathematics and formulas and statistics and calculations. A lot of it is intuition. It's a crafting. It's an understanding and intuition. So think of Apple as a good example of art and science. So there's the science there as far as making computers, making cell phones, iPads. A lot of science goes into that for sure. But there's a particularly well-crafted art of how they design their products, how they market their products, their strategic focus, how they grow as a company. So there's the science alone will not get you to be where you want to be. There has to be an artful part of the strategic plan in all areas of the company in order for it to be the most successful possible. And that means that both people who are more mathematically oriented and more art oriented can work together in drafting a better strategic management of a company. Now, of course, the formulating is really the developing of the strategic plan. The implementation is how do you actually bring this to fruition, and then evaluating the decisions to make sure they enable the organization has achieved its objectives is important too, because you really have to be able to evaluate the success, the failures, and correct course. Now, strategic management is used synonymously with the term strategic planning. So I might say strategic planning, I might say strategic management. They're the same thing. It's basically a company saying, what decisions can we make to get us to our goals in a better way? How can we think about our products, how we organize our company, how we manufacture our products, how we deliver our products, who our customers are. This is all part of the strategic plan. And the strategic plan is a highly complex, evolved plan that companies, aren't going to get as far unless they actually really mapped out where they want to go. Now, strategic management can also be referred to as strategic formulation, implementation, evaluation. So strategic management is the catch-all for everything. Now, with strategic planning is referring only to strategy formulation. So strategic planning is more about making the plan. And strategic management, I guess you would think of it as everything. It can really be a catch-all for everything. Okay, so a strategic plan is really, if you ever played sports, the game plan as far as what we're going to do to try to win. And by winning, that means, increasing sales, increasing profits. And it's really, focusing on many areas of the company as far as marketing, finance, accounting, production, information systems. All these things have to work together to be successful. So strategic management can also be defined as an executive level activity of distributing resources across products and regions to sustain a competitive advantage over the rivals. So you really have to also, it's not just what your company does, you have to react to what other companies are doing to try to, make sure you're one step ahead of them. And there's so many decisions that have to be made between geographical areas, markets you're entering, markets to avoid, competitors, their reaction to your development of products or entering their zones of competitive areas. So it can hinge on just a few right decisions, and there's formulating these strategies, deciding what products to make, where to sell them, how to compete against competitors. These are very detailed plans, well thought out and implemented. And you're hoping that when you have these good strategies, the implementation of them is hard, because you could have a good plan or idea of what you want to do, but if you don't have the right hiring activities, if you don't motivate your employees correctly, if you're not focused on the costs of your company, benchmarking your objectives, outsourcing, potential production, being able to secure financing and keeping all your facilities operating at peak efficiency, it's just a huge amount to do. And companies have to do this. In our personal lives, sometimes we don't have a strategic plan, and sometimes we don't optimize everything. But companies have to. But they have the benefit of many people working at this goal, where in your life, it's usually just you. So you may not optimize every minute of your day or every expense or think about everything in budgetary terms, but companies have to. It's the operational tactics that companies have to use to sustain their competitive advantage. So if a company doesn't have a competitive advantage, it's not going to last long. And we'll talk more about competitive advantages later. Okay, so what the slide is basically saying here, tough managerial choices just means that, there's a lot of different ways and different things you can do in business. And, trying to send the right signals to your markets, your customers, your policies, your procedures, your operations, it's all, can be very difficult. That's my cat, Barb. She will drop in on the lecture here and there and meow. So don't let her throw you off. Okay. So this, and if I don't mean to talk about Apple a lot, but Apple's a great example of how they have many different products. They started out with computers, they moved into iPads, iPhones, they have their own operating system, they design their own chips that go into their computers and their phones. So this is a huge amount of effort to control all the hardware and all the software. And there are some drawbacks and some benefits to that. So if they're controlling the whole ecosystem of their products from materials to software, it's a lot easier to control the quality than if you're a PC manufacturer or PC software developer. You have to work together with another company to get your software to work on somebody else's hardware and make sure everything is well integrated. It's difficult. Okay, if you look at this is the strategic management model. So this is a pretty well thought out plan model, and we're going to be talking about this throughout this course. And there's a lot of chapters here, so let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. Okay, so we're starting in chapter 1, which is just an introduction, overview of the topic, the course, and as we're moving forward, we're going to move into chapter 2, which is business vision and mission. So chapter 2 is really how does a company express their vision and write down their mission statement. And then we're going to go into chapter 3, which we're going to talk about external assessment, everything outside the company, and how that matters to your strategic plan. Then we're going to move into the internal assessment, everything inside the company that you can control and how that works, to developing your strategies. So chapter 5 will be strategies and action. Chapter 6 is strategy, analysis, and choice. Chapter 7 is implementing strategies and management and marketing issues. Chapter 8 is implementing strategies in finance and accounting. And chapter 9 is strategic evaluation and governance of the corporation. And now if we look at chapter 10 is the business ethics, social responsibility, economic, environmental sustainability, and Chapter 11 is global issues. So if you this little measure here, this is strategy formulation in these chapters, strategy implementation, strategy evaluation. So this is kind of how the book is organized and what we're going to be going over in the strategic model. Now, it's just one graphic of showing you the strategic management process, and one that this book is going to follow. So it's not a guarantee of success, but it represents a clear, practical approach in which you as a manager or a leader of a company can formulate, implement, and evaluate strategies. So we're going to focus on what it means between those different modalities in fully realizing your strategic goals. So, relationships among major components of the strategic management process are going to be, in this basic model I kind of went over with you. And what we're really kind of asking here is, where are we now? Where do we want to go, and how are we going to get there? So that's a very basic and also important questions to answer in a strategic plan. So let's start out with, these stages of, move that down a bit, stages of strategic management. So we're going to go over, just giving you a basic idea of these stages. Remember that the strategic management process is dynamic, it's continuous, it doesn't end, it constantly has to be updated, corrected, course change when different things occur in the internal, external environment, and there's so many moving parts to doing the strategic planning and strategic management of a company. It's just very difficult. It's not something that every company is going to get right on the first try. It's many elements of the plan might be working, some elements might not be working. So it's an activity, and it's a feedback loop that the strategy is, it's really a verb that we're working in these stages, of formulation, implementation, evaluation. So those are the three big stages that we're going to work on, and they're continuous. So they're worked on simultaneously. So you're always developing your formulation. You're always thinking about your implementation and then your evaluation. As you move through time, your formulation may change, which requires updating the implementation, which requires different and more evaluation. And evaluation leads to change the formulations and change the implementation. So this feedback loop is this continuous. If a company just stops and thinks they're done, they're going to fall behind. So it has to, enable the changing conditions, so the company is always prepared for external, internal assessments, and that's going to affect their formulation, implementation, and their evaluation. Now, a lot of times, strategies are working well. Sometimes they're not working well. You have to retreat, rethink, regroup, move forward again. Even, companies like Apple have many stumbling points where they did well, retreated, failed, moved forward, did well, retreated, failed, moved forward, did well, and then expanded upon their process. Now, it just happened to be that Apple had a strategic genius on the front lines for a long time that helped really steer the company so well that even today, the echoes of his decision, Steve Jobs, is felt in the strategic success of the company. Okay, so let's talk. We're going to move into the first step, strategic formulation. So the formulation is the development of a vision, mission, identifying an organization's external opportunities and threats, determining internal strengths and weaknesses, establishing long-term objectives, generating alternative strategies, and choosing the best strategies that you're going to pursue. So this book is, this is one slide that just kind of introduces this, but, this is going to be talked about and developed all throughout the chapter and the chapters ahead, because no organization has just access to unlimited money or limited resources. So they have to strategize and decide, which strategy is going to benefit the firm for what they're working with, their employment personnel, their money, their financing. The formulation has to set the organization on a specific path to produce products, enter certain markets, best use of their resources, and development and implementation of technologies that's going to help the company be successful in their strategic long-term competitive goals and hopefully develop more and more strategic competitive advantages. And we're going to talk more about what a competitive advantage is. It's pretty much what it sounds. It's an advantage you have as a company that other companies may not have. So strategic decisions, these are multifunctional, multi-department efforts that top management has to be engaged in to make sure that things are going to work. Now, when you're formulating the strategic decisions, like I was saying before, what new businesses should you enter? You know, a lot of businesses are like sharks. They have to continuously eat and continuously grow. And in many cases, in order to grow, they may have to enter into new business areas or merge or acquire other companies to expand their business footprint. And some of that may require them to abandon certain businesses that are no longer valuable to the company as a whole. And many times companies do spin off businesses. You know, you'll have AT&T reassessing their ownership of Warner Brothers and selling Warner Brothers to Discovery as a way of abandoning that business and focusing more on telecommunications. Which, you know, this is part of the decision to expand operations or diversify. So at one time, AT&T decided to diversify into content with Warner Brothers and distribution of media, and then they backed away from it. You know, whether to enter international markets. Are they going to bring their products to other countries, other parts of the world? So that brings a whole new slew of questions and strategic development. Whether to merge or form a joint venture. So I talked about, you know, it's a merger is when two companies come together and form a new company. Sort of like Discovery Plus and Warner Brothers came together to form a new multimedia company. Now, a joint venture would be two companies. Say Hulu is a joint venture between, at the time it was Disney, Comcast, and Fox came together to create Hulu. And the strategy was, let's create a platform that people can stream our shows so they don't pirate them. And then also as a strategy, how to prevent a hostile takeover. If someone wants to take your company over and you don't want them to, how do you gain some control over that and prevent that? Okay, so let's now talk about strategic implementation. Okay, so strategic implementation is pretty much, again, what it sounds like. You are going to establish some objectives and some policies, and you're going to figure out how can we take our strategic plan and implement it. So we have to figure out a way, how are our employees going to be involved? And how can we motivate them to be on board with this particular plan? How can we take the resources the company has, which could be labor, materials, finance, and organize that in a way that's we can execute our strategies to be successful. So it's going to include development of hopefully a supportive culture in the company. It's going to create an organizational structure that's going to be able to implement the strategic decisions. Hopefully the implementation will include redirecting and rebranding of the marketing efforts, preparing budgets, developing information systems that are going to help us to benchmark and help us to reach our goals and manage data and do data analysis, figure out our tactics, and hopefully linking the employees' compensation and the manager's compensation to the overall achievement of the goals. So the implementation is really the busy, challenging stage. It's the action stage where we're going to mobilize as a company. Managers are going to work with employees to put the formulated strategies that were developed in the formulation period to work. So this is going to require discipline, commitment, sacrifice, vision, leadership. So it all hinges on the management's ability to properly communicate what we're trying to do as a company and how that's going to benefit employees, to motivate employees to work to achieve this. So interpersonal skills are a huge, important, critical part of this, how people communicate with each other and how the strategy is successfully communicated to the employees so that implementation can be understood by employees. The management can work through the employees, describing what they need to do and what the end goal is. So each, division or department can decide, what must we do to implement our part of, the entire strategic plan. What's our part of the implementation? And how can we get this done in a way that's going to make the implementation successful? And there's a lot of challenges along the way to get this done, of course. And then finally, evaluation. So we're going to determine what isn't working well and fix it. And there's three fundamental activities: reviewing external and internal factors, measuring performance, and taking corrective action. So managers have to be able to understand when strategies are not working. So the evaluation process is the way that we're going to get the information needed to know, a feedback basically on how well the strategies are working. So we're going to use these, hopefully the evaluation is successful, we can modify the activities and improve them for the future. And this is, this feedback loop is constant. So we're constantly looking to tweak, improve, and make better. So we want to review the external and internal factors that are based in the current strategies. So our current strategies are aligned with the realities of the outside world and the internal world of the company. Is that still correct? Has things changed? Have tax laws changed? Have governments changed? Has people's opinions about things changed? Then we have to measure performance. How well do we do in sales of each product, each product in each state, each product in each country, each product's, profitability, each product's cost components. And, so we have to measure that performance. So we're measuring performance of people, products, services. And then we're taking corrective actions when something's not working. So we might have a product that's not selling. Why isn't it selling? Okay, the evaluation of the product is people hate the packaging. Okay, let's redesign the packaging. Maybe people hate the mascot. Let's redesign the mascot. Maybe people hate the name. There for a while, a lot of, say, cereals had the name sugar in it, like Sugar Smacks or Sugar Flakes, or, sugar was part of the title of many different cereals. And after a while, they discovered that people don't want to consume sugar, or they don't want to give sugar to their kids. Sugar had a bad connotation to it. So they changed it to honey nut Cheerios, honey smacks, so something that was sweet that didn't have this bad connotation of, sugar, which is something that we all, a lot of kids eat too much of. And that's how, at one point it was a selling aspect of it. And then at a later point it was, okay, this is not a good ingredient. So strategies had to be changed. Names of products had to be changed. So, the evaluation process may pick up on new and different problems that have to be addressed and thought about. So, taking together the formulation, the implementation, and the evaluation is how a company is going to continuously move forward to measure the performance, take these corrective actions, make a new formulate a new strategy, formulate changes to the implementation. It's just a relentless, endless task that if companies do well, they can be very, very successful. But it takes, at the cornerstone of all this, it takes vision and leadership to really envision where the strategy of the company should be going, and leadership to direct the company to get there. Now let's get into competitive advantage. So competitive advantage is something that we were talking about before, and it's a very key term. Now, one of the main goals of the strategic management is about gaining and understanding and maintaining a company's competitive advantage, because this is something that can define the company and separate them from their competitors. So if there's something that a company does very well that gives them an advantage, this is a competitive advantage, something that gives them an advantage over other companies. So this term, we're going to have lots of examples of competitive advantage as this course moves forward. And so it's some sort of activity the firm does exceptionally well compared to the activities done by rival firms. Maybe one particular firm is just really good at innovating product features and product design. And other firms, they don't have the expertise, so they maybe just copy the leading firm and try to emulate what they're doing. Well, one firm's clearly a leader in design and innovation of their products. Other firms can be a leader in intuitiveness, making products very intuitive and easy to use. That's something where Google maintained a competitive advantage over Yahoo. So when Google came out with their search bar and their very white blank, search website, it was just so clear to people. You didn't have all these moving parts, and you didn't have all these flashing lights and that the Yahoo homepage has, or the AOL homepage, or the Netscape homepage had. It finally refined and simplified the search process. So that innovative approach was very useful to Google gaining some superior or some competitive advantage. In addition to their technology, their search engine was just better. The technology was a competitive advantage for their search results were quicker, faster, and more directed to what people were looking for. So let's talk about how does a firm sustain a competitive advantage? So, you have to, if you have a competitive advantage, of course you want to sustain that in a way that it's going to be around for a long time. So a couple of things you can do to sustain a competitive advantage, which is really very important. If a firm possesses a competitive advantage, they don't want to lose it. So continually adapting to the changing external trends, events, in internal capacity, capabilities, competitive, resources. So you really just want to make sure that the competitive advantage, whatever it is staying current and being refreshed. So anytime you're doing formulating, implementing, and evaluating strategies, you want to capitalize on the factors that gave you the advantage in the first place. So offering products that are unique and not easily duplicated by rivals is a great way to maintain that competitive advantage. Accepting trade-offs by deciding what to do, what not to do. So no firm can be everything to everybody. So some firms may just want to sell in the high end of the market. Some firms may want to focus on the low end of the market, but it's very difficult to please everybody all the time. So you have to pick what's your competitive advantage. Okay, so in more key terms that we're going to talk about is strategists. So strategists are the individuals responsible for making these strategies. So they're responsible for the success or failure of the organization. So again, like a Steve Jobs, an Elon Musk, a Jeff Bezos, these are people who they're strategists. So even though they're also the head of the company and the leader of the company, their main vision and goal for the company was brilliant, but their strategy to get to be successful and to get the company to be successful is just outstanding. So a strategist, of course, and this could be the owner of the company, the chief executive officer, the president, the owner, I said that already, the director of the board, executive directors, a lot of different names of titles can go under these strategists that are going to be, the really leading force of organizing, gathering, analyzing, and synthesizing organizational data information to put the company on the right track. And companies are also going to need vision and mission statements. So the vision is the smaller of the two. So a vision statement is usually a sentence or two, and it's just what you want to become. Where's your vision? Where are you going? And the mission statement is more about what your business currently is. So a vision could be just one or two sentences, but a mission statement can be much longer. And what we're trying to do here is, answer these questions of who are we, what do we want to become, and what are we currently doing? Now, if you don't define who you are as a company, it's going to be difficult to move forward. So the mission statement is more about distinguishing the businesses of a company. It's going to identify the scope of operations, what the products are, their markets are, address basic questions that faces all the entire organization. So developing a mission statement is going to be difficult, and it's going to be linked to the strategies of the company and the competitive advantages of the company to really, assess where the company is, how attractive the company's markets are, and where they want to go, in the future even can be included in that mission statement. So it's going to very broadly try to summarize the direction of the organization, the activities of the organization, and just be a reminder to customers and employees what the company is all about. So it is very critical, and companies often work long and hard to develop a vision statement and a mission statement, and they update them frequently. Things change. Now, in later chapters, we're going to talk about the external and internal threats, and there's many here to think about, to worry about for a company. So let's talk about external opportunities and threats. Now, it's a big world out there. There are a lot of economic opportunities. There's a lot of social opportunities, cultural, demographic, environmental, political, legal, government, you get it, technology. All of these things can be opportunities or threats. Technology is one that's very dynamically changed over the last 50 years, where whole industries have been obsolete, new industries have come up, just on the change in technology. If you just look at the change in music technology from vinyl records to MP3s, just looking at the change in how we consume TV from broadcast to cable to streaming and internet. So there's a lot that, so when Netflix first envisioned an organization that could make a streaming through the internet and have streaming be a way of people consuming content, they were a pioneer in that idea and in the technology to actually make it happen. Because in the beginning, it was very difficult to stream a TV show or a movie. It lagged. There was a lot of data to push through. So they tried streaming even before the technology was really there to deliver it. But luckily, over time, the 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G we're at, the fiber optics, the cable companies, they really came through with the hardware to put more data out more quickly through the internet, and also the software to condense these files and make them stream better. So these are all things that, worked out so well that we wound up having one streaming company to having about 12 different streaming companies. But because Netflix was so successful in their original strategic plans and their competitive advantages, many companies rushed in to compete to get a piece of that pot of gold. Now, some general categories of these opportunities and threats. Of course, if markets are growing, that's an opportunity. If demographics are growing, that's an opportunity. If energy prices are growing or increasing or decreasing, it can be, depending on what type of company you are, it could be advantage or a disadvantage. So there's a lot. Right now we're dealing with a lot of computer hackers of companies, and that's a threat that has to be secure, always securing your network. So there's just a lot, and we have a whole chapter we're going to talk about this. Now, strengths and weaknesses, of course, every company is going to have different strengths and different weaknesses, which is going to be relative, I guess, to the competitors. So, some companies are going to do something that's going to be very hard to duplicate. So if you look at Coke or Pepsi, they have very vast distribution networks to get their products to market. If we're just focusing on soda, Coke and Pepsi is pretty much literally everywhere. And if you want to be a new soda company, it's very difficult to get on the shelf. In some cases, Coke and Pepsi buy the shelf space that they're on and prevent new competitors from being placed on those shelves. So this is a competitive advantage, it's a strength, but for other companies who want to develop a soda brand, it's a weakness. So doing, strategic management is going to really have to be, maybe a SWOT analysis or looking at, the strengths, and internal weaknesses. that the company has. Maybe it's a manpower issue, or the company doesn't have enough employees. It's hard to hire employees, or the cost of labor is going up. So there's something that the organization is probably not doing that's not the best at. The other companies are better at. So that's an opportunity for companies to identify it and say, okay, what can we do to improve this? So identifying is really critical to expanding on your opportunities and strengths and compensating for the threats and weaknesses. And like I said, we have a whole chapter where we're going to go over that a lot more continuously. And these are just some opportunities and threats as, the internet evolves, food prices, gas and energy prices change, computers, technology changes, computer security changes. And this is what we're going to hopefully utilize this to make some long-term objectives. And when you're making a long-term objective, we're really looking to achieve components of our strategic plan or mission in a phase that's going to be longer than a year. So many things that companies want to get done in the long term, for example, I think maybe GM made a statement that they want to move all of the manufacturing to electric vehicles and no more internal combustion engines. That's going to take a lot longer than a year to accomplish. So there's going to be a lot of challenges as far as where people are going to recharge their batteries if they're traveling, the range, the driving range of these cars, the cost of these cars, things of that nature. So this has to be something that's a constantly looked at, but we realize that it's going to take a long-term time to make this company into something, to change it in a fundamental way. Just like Amazon and Netflix are both multi-year plans to get to where they are today. So it's going to take it's hard. The longer your objective is, the longer term your objective is, the more difficulties that can arise in planning, organizing, motivating, controlling the activities. It's just that these long-term objectives are harder to achieve because you have to continuously work at it, and many things can pop up along the way that can derail or make them unsuccessful. A lot of times long-term strategies are going to include, expansions to other, countries or other parts of the world, diversification of their products, acquisition of other companies, product development, market penetration into new markets, retrenchment or pulling back from existing markets, divesting from parts of the company that aren't working, joint ventures, working with other companies for a common goal. These are all things that, in strategies, and I'm sorry, I skipped ahead in my lecture. Here's the slide on this, which is, these are some of the long-term things that we're going to talk about that companies have to get right and have to move forward with. Now, a SWOT analysis in the matrix format, it's just basically some tools for mapping out different quadrants of strengths, opportunities. So if you have these four quadrants, up here is your strengths and opportunities. Here are your weaknesses and opportunities. Here are your strengths and threats. Here are your weaknesses and threats. So we could put things in these different boxes that would be how we would see them fit in the company. Because some things are a mix. They're opportunities and threats. Opportunities and weaknesses, or strengths and threats. So there can be a mix there. But the objective is, to achieve, we always want to focus on achieving these strategic plans, these long-term objectives. Maybe they're annual objectives, something we can measure, we can quantify. They can be challenging. We can prioritize, and these charts that we're going to talk about. And this matrix is just listing out these different strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and of course down here threats, and then strength, opportunity, things that we would consider a strength and an opportunity, things that we consider a weakness and a threat. So some of them might just exist in these one panels, but some of them are actually combined. that they kind of work together. Now, these annual objectives, what I was talking about before, is usually companies are going to measure things monthly, quarterly, or annually as a milestone, and to achieve in the progress of achieving these longer term objectives. It could be increasing sales to 100 million. It could be moving profitability, moving from a loss to a profitable company. And of course, these things have to be measured, and we have to, evaluate, which we talked about earlier. So companies have to establish a divisional, functional levels and break the organization into ways that is manageable, because no one person can do everything. So policies are going to be a way in which the companies can hopefully achieve these annual objectives, or policies are a way to make things more clear to employees about what you can and can't do with the company. Now, so strategic management is going to allow an organization to be more proactive than reactive. So reactive is bad because it's happened and you have to correct course and you may be caught off unaware. Proactive is predicting that this is going to be a problem or a situation and we got to move on it. We got to be ahead of it. So this is going to allow an organization to start and influence rather than respond. So these activities are going to be, you're predicting these are things that are likely to be a problem. How can I avoid them and make it an opportunity? So benefits to a firm that thoroughly engage in their strategic planning as the core of the company. So of course, you're going to have enhanced communication. So one of the things companies are very poor at is typically communicating. Getting the message across to its employees, to its customers. So the better the company communicates its strategic plan, its decisions, its operations, the easier achieving a strategic plan is going to be. Deeper, improved understanding of people who are going to be part of the internal and external aspects of the firm. So what the firm is doing or planning and why. So employees want to understand, why am I doing this? And customers want to know what's the company's direction and why are they changing the product? Why are they, focusing on including sustainability, recycled elements of their products. So there has to be not just a communication of the ideas, but an understanding of why and why it's important. And then a commitment to achieve these objectives from all the employees. We've all worked with employees that don't really care about how the company's doing or what they're doing is important to their mission. So it could be as simple as someone who is working in a retail location being kind of cranky to the customers, not realizing that that's going to have a long-term effect, as this customer may not come back, may influence other people not to come back. So this commitment is really understanding every aspect of your job and why it's important to stay on track. And of course, the results. If you stick to a strategic plan, you communicate, you understand, there's commitment, then the results will come. And the managers and the employees can join in on celebrating the success of the strategic plan. Hopefully, they also participate in this financially. I mean, that's really why financial organizations are going to develop this strategic management, is hopefully to maximize the profitability of the company, that will enable the company to share that profitability, not just with the owners of the company, the shareholders, but also the employees and other stakeholders in the business, vendors, customers, supply, things of that nature. So if the organization gets their strategic management done well, hopefully they'll see an improvement in sales and profitability and productivity compared to firms that are failing on their planning activities. So productivity is really crucial for a company continuing to do better. So, just for example, imagine a time you're working in an office before computers. I know that time, and people did accounting on paper and on ledgers and in books. So it was so slow and easy to make a mistake and very tedious. And then computers came in and enhanced that whole process. And then the internet came in and enhanced the connectivity of that process again. So this all improved employees' productivity. In some cases, I remember working for a large company and they had 7 people in payroll to process and get the payroll out on a weekly basis. 10 years later, after automation, some outsourcing of some of the payroll functions, it was down to 1 person. Now, that is unfortunate. Some other people were laid off along the way, but it's much more productive for the company to have 1 person or 2 people where they used to have 10 to do something. So high performance firms tend to have this commitment to a systematic planning to prepare for the future and to take advantage of their environment. Now, non-financial, of course, there's financial benefits, and that's basically what I was kind of talking about in the previous slide with the financial benefits. I might have not had the title in there, but this is really, companies are there to make money. So the financial benefits is is a big part of the motivation for the strategic plan, growing the company, and maintaining the profitability of the company. But there are also non-financial benefits that are going to come up. And so we do need those finances approved to help the company avoid bankruptcy. But there are non-financial benefits. When you do the strategic planning, you're going to have a better awareness of the external threats because you're going to do an analysis and a survey, and you're going to do feedback and maybe focusing on customer satisfaction and just getting a better idea of what other competitors are doing in the environment or politics is going to just going through that will enhance your awareness and make your strategic plan that much better. Better understanding of what the competitors are doing. So if you're doing the strategic plan, part of it is to learn what the competitors are doing, what their competitors are doing that is beneficial and is winning market share. Increasing employee productivity. I was talking about this before. What can we do to make employees more productive? Technology has a big hand in that, but also training. A lot of companies neglect the training of their employees to improve the employees' skills and abilities to do things smarter, faster, quicker. It could be as simple as training your employees on Excel, something that many employees are never properly trained with in high school, oftentimes not properly trained in college, and they get to the workforce and they're not properly trained, and the work environment has no training for Excel. So many employees are on their own and could really improve productivity greatly if Excel was better understood, because there's so many productivity features within Excel. Understanding strategic mission of the company can help reduce resistance to change. So most people don't like change. They don't want to change. They don't want their job to change. They want to do the same thing. Many employees that I've dealt with or worked with is a common theme. They don't want to learn anything new. They don't want to do anything new. They just want to work in their small little area, and they're resistant to any change, any new programs, any new directions, any new procedures. And this is a hindrance to the company. So if there's a new strategy and they explain to the employee why it's important to do things differently, to do it in a new way, or to work out a better way of doing things, that will reduce their anxiety and their resistance to change. Now, change is inevitable, and the better your employees are at adapting to change, the stronger the company will be. And completing a strategic plan and within a strategic management, you're going to have a clearer understanding of hopefully this performance reward relationship, where employees are getting raises, or employees are getting promotions, or employees are getting bonuses. And this is, if employees aren't getting the benefit of their hard work, then they're going to quietly quit, which means that I'm doing all this hard work, I'm working overtime, I'm doing everything, and I think I'm doing a good job of it, but I'm not getting promoted, I'm not getting raises, I'm not getting bonuses. Why am I putting all this effort in? I'm not getting rewarded. I don't feel like my contributions are being recognized. And that is going to lead to a reduction in productivity of employees. Now, why do some firms abandon strategic planning? Well, sometimes people aren't educated. They don't have the formal training. They never took a strategic management class. They don't understand the concept or how to go about it. There's no appreciation of the benefits that strategic plan can deliver to a company. The company has no mechanism for returning rewards for the company meeting its goals or growing. So there's no stock options, there's no real raises or promotions. So why, without a strategic plan to connect the achievements with rewards, there's low motivation. Some companies are just busy reacting, what we call firefighting, reacting to internal crisis. There's just another thing here on the slide. View planning as a waste of time. They just don't understand how planning is, because planning is, and you come down to it, it's difficult, it's hard. There's a lot of things that you have to do that are just time consuming and tedious. So there may be a hesitancy to do this work. And, it's not resulting in a new, it's not directly a function like a new product, a new service is made. It's more of an overall map of success for the company. And it's hard work. So it's not uncommon for some employees not to want to do it. Okay. I messed up the slide here. Talked about that. Okay. So this title here, sorry about this, title is, I must have moved this. Just let me fix this. So this is just slide 2. Okay. I already covered this. Right? Okay. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so more part 2 of this slide. Like I was saying before, laziness. Just, since it takes so much time and people are busy, they may not see this as a priority and they might be, just never get to it. They might be okay with the current success of the company, riding the coattails, as they say, and they don't realize that today's success was based on planning in the past, and there's no guarantee that you're going to remain successful in the future. And for a lot of markets, the products change, the customers change, all the internal, external changes are going to require some sort of plan to evolve with the changing world. Some people might just be irrationally overconfident in their company's ability to always have customers and always have good products, and just don't see the need for it because, hey, I got this, is basically the feeling. Or they might have had a prior bad experience with strategic planning where it was done poorly or sometimes done, or just it wound up, it didn't work for them, or they felt they used it as an excuse for why something failed because we planned for something big and it was a failure. So the strategic plan just leads us into risky territories. Okay, so let's look about some pitfalls in financial planning. In strategic planning. So there could be a number of pitfalls, of course. Using strategic planning to purposely gain control over something. So it's not really strategic planning for the company, it's strategic planning for you to get some better control over the company. Doing the strategic planning to only satisfy an accreditation or regulatory requirement. So really being forced to have a strategic plan because some sort of accreditation body is telling you need it, or you're being forced to do this. So it's not voluntary, and it's just, oh, we have to do this. They're requiring, if we're going to engage in this area, we have to have a strategic plan. Now, also some pitfalls could be that you move too fast, that the mission, the development of the strategic, the strategy is just hastily put together and just not companies didn't take the time to do it right. And I think the biggest pitfall is when you come up with a strategic plan, but you don't communicate it effectively to your employees, who are in the dark about where the company's going. Why are we rearranging? Maybe part of the strategic plan is a redesign of their retail stores, but you didn't tell the retail workers why they're doing it. So without proper motivation, workers might become unmotivated. Moving on to top managers making intuitive decisions that conflict with the formal plan. So sometimes a pitfall is that your current management staff may not be on target and may decide to do things their own way and not follow the plan. You could have some top managers that are bitter and are upset that their ideas weren't incorporated into the strategic plan. So they're not actively supporting it. They're almost hoping it fails for their own personal reasons. And not using the guidelines set out as a standard measurement for how well the company's doing on their plans and that feedback loop. So there can be a failure for companies to really measure that performance. So could also be that the top management delegates the planning. So rather than having everybody involved, top management, puts the responsibility on the wrong people, so to say. So they don't get involved. They may throw it on to some other people to do, and they kind of just don't want to work on it. Not involving the right key employees in the whole process. So there might be some key employees. I mean, I worked for a company at one point that really didn't properly involve their financial key people. And they, with sales and production got together and thought they were going to run the company and really didn't involve the financial people. Even when as far as when a VP of finance quit, they didn't replace them, and this led to financial problems with the company because they're missing a key component and not getting that proper feedback or analysis in the financial terms. So also not creating a collaborative climate to support the change, because if change is difficult and if the company isn't really supportive and collaborative in the change, it's not going to work out. Viewing and planning is unnecessary and unimportant. There are a number of people that they're on these task force, they're putting together the mission statement, the vision statement, and the strategic plan, but they feel like it's just all bullshit. That this is something they're doing because someone told them to do this, but it's really not going to have an impact anywhere. They could be planning activities in silos. Basically the salespeople aren't talking to the marketing people. The people who make the sales forecasts or the new products in research development aren't talking to the marketing people who need to market it, who aren't talking to the production people who need to manufacture it, who aren't talking to the finance people who need to finance the money to improve or expand manufacturing. This happens when people stay in their silos and there's no cross-company communication. And also, if you're so involved in the current problems, there's no time for proper planning. That could be a reason why a lot of companies don't make a proper strategic plan. Okay, so comparing business strategy to military strategy. So this is, military is, without strategy, military is going to fail. So military is developed very clear objectives, missions, strengths and weaknesses to address their objectives. So military operations are a little bit more disciplined. They have advanced, very difficult problems of logistics, personnel, working with, life and death themes. So the strategies were often first, there was a military before there were corporations. So military was developed their own methodology for strategy and combining armies and leaders together to achieve conquest or defense of cities or expansion of empires. So there's a lot to learn and understand with how the military in the past and present is, based on an assumption of conflict, that there's going to be some future conflict, where business and military organizations must adapt to change constantly to improve and be successful. They both have that in common. There's a lot that can be learned from, what's happened in the past militarily, as well as in the past of companies that have had successful strategic businesses and decisions in their businesses of, if you look at the history of fast food companies, the products they design, who they market to, how they manufacture their products. If you look at, in some military aspects of how you become a successful military leader or a successful military, can be very important lessons to learn on how to be a successful company. So strategic planning is, in military terms, it's really life and death. In company terms, it's more survival of the company. And if, there is this Sun Tzu's art of war, and one of the things is know your enemy and know yourself. And in 100 battles, you will never be defeated. Skillful leaders do not let a strategy inhibit creative counter movements. So basically saying you might have a strategy, but you might also need to change it up quickly and be, adaptive along the way. Now, as far as, so that's just basically, there's a lot to understand between the military, and if you read the textbook, it'll go over more of the Sun Tzu's Art of War writings and just key phrases from that book. It's a really good book to read as far as before a leader is going to really focus on competitive advantage and strategies. That book of The Art of War is an interesting one that can really be related to business. But so how does this relate to you in improving your skills and becoming more employable? Well, some things this book is going to help you, and this course is going to help you with, is how to think more critically, how to collaborate more successfully, knowledge application and analysis. So how to get the data and how to analyze the data. Understanding of today's current business ethics and social responsibility. No longer is it allowable for a company to pollute the environment, for a company to take advantage of its workers, for companies to be do things that are shady and unethical. So companies are going to be have been held, and should be held to a higher standard. They should be responsible for, all their stakeholders, not just the shareholders' wealth, the owners' wealth, but also their employees, their communities, their vendors, suppliers, same thing, customers. And, in a world where environmental catastrophe is upon us, companies have to do their fair share to limit their contributions to global destruction, global environmental destruction. Many customers feel that's, if they find a company that's just not respectful of that, they'll stop buying their products. And of course, information technology. Understanding, this book will touch upon some information technology and some different ways of collecting data, analyzing data, your data literacy, so that when you get to a company, you'll be better able to communicate the terms and understanding and talk in that company language, that on an interview they see, okay, you get it, you understand what a company needs to do, you understand the basic tenets of the strategy of the company and how it's going to get there. This all makes you a stronger interviewer, just knowing these key terms and knowing these terminology will make you better on the interview. Okay, so this particular graphic here, this is our last slide, and it's going to look at how to gain a sustained competitive advantage. And this is something that we're going to talk a lot about in this course. So basically, it's a cycle. Establishing a clear vision and mission, formulating strategies, collecting, analyzing, prioritizing the information, and using a clear strategic plan to get to where you need to be. And of course, that's now going to involve implementing that plan. establishing structure, allocating resources, motivating, rewarding, attracting customers, managing finances, evaluating, monitoring the results, taking corrective actions. This is something I talked about earlier in the course, how this is a constant cycle. And if you do this properly and continue to do this, this is how you gain and sustain competitive advantages. We'll talk about more examples of competitive advantages as the chapters go on. But if you think of the just easy to understand competitive advantages, think of the best companies, the biggest and best companies. What do they do well that really gets them to be a leader in their industry? What does McDonald's do that makes them the number one fast food company? What did Netflix do that made them the most popular streaming platform? What did Amazon do to make them the top online internet seller? There's multiple competitive strategies and advantages for all of these companies. And we're going to focus on more specific examples. For example, in this book, there are a number of cases that we'll be working on. And these cases are specifically going to point out direct examples of companies and their competitive advantage and how they sustain their competitive advantages. So as the course moves forward through the different chapters, through the different case studies that we'll be reviewing, there'll be more depth to what I introduced in this first chapter. So this first chapter was really an introduction of this course, of the textbook, of the topics we're going to cover. And from chapter 2 to the end, we're going to go more in depth of pretty much everything that we brought up here in chapter 1. And we're going to provide much clearer context, direction, examples that will hopefully reinforce what strategic management is and how you could use it to become, create a successful company, enhance a current company, or even just enhance and develop your career. Okay, thank you for listening to me for chapter 1. I look forward to talking to you for chapter 2. Take care.